Hi everybody, welcome to the kitchen. Now we're making Australian red sand desert cornbread. All right, they like cornbread in Australia, even though its origins actually are American, coming from the Indians, of course. But in Australia, they like to add things to the cornbread. They like to put stuff in it, a lot of times peppers. And so I decided to make a red sand desert cornbread, and we're going to use a red bell pepper. So we have a cheese blend, and this is a Mexican cheese blend, but I'm going with the sort of like a Southwest flavorings with our red bell pepper. So this is a great blend. I'm going to put actual corn into it, and we have our butter, our eggs, buttermilk, canola oil, flour, cornmeal, brown sugar. I like the brown sugar instead of regular granulated sugar. The brown sugar has more molasses in it, and that's why it's brown. And I like that extra flavor that the molasses gives it, so I prefer to use the brown sugar with this one. And our salt and baking powder. So I have our cutting board, paring knife, spatula, measuring spoon. So I got a lot of stuff to weigh out and start getting this cut up. So I'm going to cut them into small dice, and I'll fold it into the cornbread batter at the end before we bake it. I showed you guys how to cut a pepper when we did the vegetable sancocho during our month of September when we read When I Was Puerto Rican. But just to refresh your memory in case you forgot, I cut off the top, I removed the seeds, I cut off the bottom as well, just to make it easier to cut. Then I slice it in nice thin strips, put them together, and then slice nice little cubes, okay? So that is how you would cut it. I have the scale out, and we need 5 ounces of cornmeal. So just weigh that out. Extra. There we go. All right. So now if you notice my recipe, I don't have, I have measurements by weight, not by cups. And so it's always good to have the measurements in both weight and cups, because a lot of people don't have cups at home. So let me get my measuring cups and see how much 5 ounces actually equals. So I kind of need 2 hands to do that. I'll tell you in a second. 5 ounces of flour, yellow cornmeal equals 1 cup. So that's 1 cup of cornmeal. Now I need 12.75 ounces of all-purpose flour. So we're going to just pour that in. A little too much, so I got to take some out. Okay, so again, I have to do the same thing. I'm going to figure out how many cups 12.75 ounces of flour equals. So 12.75 ounces is 3 cups, and I've added our 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add the yellow corn flour, and what I need to do next, I'm going to have to melt the butter, and then I'm going to put this in a measuring cup, unwrap it, put it in the microwave for a couple, like 3 30-second bursts, and that probably will melt it. Okay, so I have our 3 eggs broken in here. We have our 1/2 cup of canola oil. I've got our melted butter over there, keeping melted and warm on the oven. And unfortunately, the buttermilk was not good. Remember, the refrigerator went down. I thought the buttermilk was okay. I had put it in the freezer, and I just defrosted it, and no, it's no good. Luckily, I bought milk yesterday, so I'm just going to use regular milk. Now, Unfortunately, buttermilk has a bit of tanginess to it, and I like that sort of flavor in here. Also, usually I prefer to put sour cream or Greek yogurt in my cornbread to give it a little bit more richness, which luckily this is whole milk and not fat-free milk, but I'm worried it's going to be a little bit lacking. So hopefully it'll be okay, but I need 1.5 cups of milk, and then I'm going to whisk all the liquid ingredients together. All right, so I have the eggs, the melted butter, the canola oil, the milk, and I've whisked it all together. And I've decided that I really want that tanginess, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Okay, so again, you have to think of what can we substitute. If the buttermilk went bad, what can we substitute? Well, I have the milk, and to give it the tanginess and the acidity, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar. So I've added in our vinegar, and then now I want to add in our 8 ounces of light brown sugar, which is actually 1 cup packed. And I'm going to add that in, and I prefer to add that into the liquid ingredients instead of into the dry, is because I really want to get rid of any lumps of brown sugar. Sometimes brown sugar, you have these lumps, these little rocks, and I want to make sure, I want to whisk it all in, dissolve the sugar in the liquid, and see how there's a couple lumps? I want to either, crush those or get rid of them. Okay, so now I've got our 2 tablespoons of baking powder in there as well, and I want to stir this together well. And what we're going to do is we're going to combine the liquid with the dry. Okay, so I can stop using the whisk now, and I'll switch over to just the spatula. I'm going to do 1 cup of corn, which is 4.5 ounces. And so now I'm just going to pour this in. And I'm going to stir it with the spatula. I'm going to get this all combined. And when it's combined, then I'm going to add in our corn and red bell pepper, and then the cheese. So now I've got our red bell pepper, our cheese, 4 ounces or 1 cup of the shredded cheese blend, which is Monterey Jack, Cheddar, Asadero, and quesadilla cheese, and our 1 cup of frozen corn, which has been sitting out for a while, so it's no longer frozen. And I'm just gonna fold all of this in, and then we're gonna put it in our baking dish. Okay, I couldn't resist. I added a little bit of chili powder. So I want the flavors to have a little tang to it, a little kick. So you can add cayenne pepper or chili powder, just a 1/4 teaspoon for a little tiny bit. So I had these little loaf pans left over, and I am going to use those up to make little mini cornbreads. I'm just using an ice cream scoop to put it in, and these will bake up great. And this is a nice way to present your cornbread on Thanksgiving. You can put 1 on each person's plate, or you could bring this as a hostess gift if you're going to somebody's house. But these are left over from last year when we did our bake sale. I have a whole bunch of them, so I might as well use them for this and make these cute little cornbreads. Or you could put this on a half-sheet pan and bake it. It will be kind of thin, or a 9x9 brownie pan, and then you get a nice thick, fat cornbread. But I think this is a great way to use it, and then we can share these. So this is a nice way to do it. So I'm going to put these in our 300-degree oven and bake them, and bring them out when they're golden brown. All right, so there we go. Here are our beautiful cornbread mini muffins. They're nice and golden, and they're perfect. So, how adorable are those? Doesn't that look just fantastic? That would be at each person's place on Thanksgiving. Lovely. This one is the square one that we just put in, so that's going to take a little while longer. I raised the temperature to 350, especially with these little loaves. We want it to bump up like this. So we need a higher temperature. That's why I've switched it to 350. So I still gotta wait for the other one to come out, and we'll see how good that looks. Okay, here we go. Wow, look at that, it looks beautiful. Okay, that is done. So now we got two styles. We've got this one, and we'll just unmold it and cut it and serve it, or we have the fancy ones to put on the Thanksgiving table, which will look great. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this cornbread, Australian with the peppers in it and the corn and the cheese, and I hope you really, really enjoy it. Take care, all.